Thank you very much, Mark. Okay, item 10. Capital Programme Performance Report, presented by Dave. Thank you, Dave. This is a new report for us.
Good morning. Yes, we've done a bit of work, combination between PMO, the finance, across to try and pull what we felt was a governance level report. I noted some of your comments earlier that there might be a bit more, too much detail in it, but I thought what I'd do is go through the highlight, but we'd welcome any feedback about the good, the bad and the ugly, what you would like to see in future and whatever. So I think it's really important you recognise probably our capital program as one of the most complex, I would say, in the country, because we're covering facilities, we're covering infrastructure, we're covering roading. It interfaces with a huge number of ratepayers. So if you have a look there, we've got 15 different teams, we've got 22 different programs sitting in there. We are running 982 projects at the time that this was written. That changes every day as we pull stuff down from program level. We've got a budget of $571 million. If you put that in there, we're spending over $2 million a day to deliver this capital program. So it is a pretty good and complex program. At the moment, we're forecasting $484.7 million, and we're forecasting about 85% delivery on budget and on time. You've got to recognise that some of the things that we aren't going to be deliver are payments only, and we've raised a few in there, examples of that around things like the bus interchange, which is just a payment which we've put back. And so there are some of those major capital purchases that sit within this program because it's an all-inclusive program and it covers IT. If you have a look, we've also got issues in there around the Metro Sports, the timing of that, the programming of that, Performing Arts Precinct. We have spent 203 in the first quarter against a budget of 222, so that's 91%. I think if you have a look at the graph that we've put on the top there, it does show you where we're tracking to forecast against budget. You also see last year, and if you go back to the year following previous year, we always have a steep climb in the second half of the year as more projects come into the market, as we do. And so we do expect a very similar kind of trend. That trend comes year in, year out. We also have put out our forecasts. You can appreciate a lot of these projects are multi-year, and the town hall is a really good example. You know, $1 million might not come in this month, but it'll come in next month. It's purely a timing of exactly when those operations happen and when the contractor claims. So some of the things when we are $1 million underspent on a big project like that, it's not actually, it's a timing issue rather than a project being delayed and anything like that. Turn over the page. The next one, we've just given you an idea of where we are with forecasts and where our spend is to date and where the two lines potentially could meet. We are doing a lot of work to try and make sure that we've got as maximum number of projects to the market as we can, and we are continuing with our proof of program, proof of forecast with all our delivery teams, and that's run by a specialist little team out of the PMO, out of the Project Management Office. Over on to the next page, we have given you an idea of bringbacks and carry forwards. I think you're pretty aware of some of these projects that have been accelerated when we can. Some projects, because of land purchase, a variety get pulled back. So if you have a look, the net position is 74 million or 74.6 million. And what we've given you at the top there is a bringback value and a carry by various departments. Bring back obviously is bring back from future years so that the project is proceeding ahead of it. Carry forward is where that project hasn't proceeded and we are carrying it forward. And a good example would be, Martians Road, where we're still going through land purchase. Another good example would be Horsewell Road, Junction Road, where we're still in negotiations with the details of how we get across the railway lines, and we need to work our way through those. So there's a lot of examples why things get brought back. Good example of a bring back would be Littleton, where we are able, we've got all the consents going, and we are able to proceed with the Littleton wastewater project, and that's an example of a bring back. We will proceed because we've got all the goes, and it's going very well. I have got a list there, and we've given you a list of the significant spring back, and you can see Littleton wastewater is the top one up there. It's the biggest dollars. And have a look at some of the other ones. I've talked about Hallsville Junction Road, why it's gone out. The Performing Arts Precinct, I think you know pretty much why we've put some of that out. But that gives you an idea of the significant carry forwards. Mr. Chairman, we then give you a detail of the different profiles, but I wasn't going to work through those. I think maybe from this point open it out to questions. Does that sound all right?
Yeah, no, that's really useful. I think especially explaining, what a carry forward is, which is basically a timing issue. The project hasn't yet been done or can't be done for whatever reason, and also the carry forwards when you want to accelerate a project. The page 36 information is useful. What would also be useful there is actually if you somehow, maybe we can do this online, just have a link or something explaining why it's being carried forward or brought back, because ultimately that's kind of the question that people ask. And this really is a detailed explanation of what we see in the next report, which is the normal finance report, which has OPEX and CAPEX, and this actually is showing the individual projects and some explanation as to why they are carried forward or brought back would just make life a lot easier and just save questions, because you obviously know why that's happening. One question in terms of the forecasting, I see on page 34, so you're forecasting 484 million, or the project managers are. The finance team is projecting 430. Can you explain the different approaches from, say, the finance team who have to fund this stuff and the project managers who are trying to get it done?
Actually comes from the PMO office, and I historically think the PMO office has been, I suppose, are my black hat thinkers, and my my project managers are my green hat thinkers, I suppose. And so the two will meet, as you can see on that page. The two lines will will slowly join at some point in time. Historically, the trend. I believe that I believe that the 430 is lower. If you have a look at traditional expenditure, is a pretty pessimistic view. But as you can see, historically the trend on forecast has slowly dropped off. So my understanding, well, I've got my PMO office working with the project managers to deliver the maximum of those projects we can, making sure that all the programs are dropped to project level, they're all out in groups and proof of program. So I believe while that's what the PMO's saying, I think that the truth will be somewhere between those two figures, and I'm hoping more at the 480.
Yeah, it usually is somewhere in between. So just to clarify that, obviously the project managers are always confident they're going to deliver a project on time. The PMO or the finance team are a little bit more sceptical, citing what has happened in the past, so they tend to predict lower delivery outcomes, which then they have to fund. So there's that balance.
And that's part of the reason I actually encourage the PMO to go pessimistically, so that they can get proof of program from the project managers, basically. So they are the challengers. They're saying, well, you know, this hasn't gone to market, or look, if you have a look at the last 5 months of expenditure, you are predicting 1.5 million, you're only spending 1 million. Why do you think it's going? And so they are the kind of, like I say, the black hat thinkers are the ones that challenge it, and I think that reflects in their forecast.
Because I think from the public perspective, obviously needing to know how much something is going to cost, but very often when it's going to finish. Often if you give people information that the project is going to take so long, they can live with it. What they struggle with is when stuff gets shifted out. Yeah. Dion?
Yeah, I just have a excuse me. I just have a question around the budget line on these graphs that you've got, and I just wanted to understand the relationship between those and the council one, all of council budget line, and then the individual budget lines. Let's say transport forward view, and how they're going up. But it doesn't seem the all of council line is going up. in terms of the budget?
Not sure whether, Richard, you're able to answer those two jumps, but I would assume that some of it will be related to we get approval from NZTA, and so in actual fact we get the income coming in, so that enables a project to go ahead. Sometimes we'll bring back a project, and I presume both those stumps probably relate to cycleways, but I'm not quite sure. Lynette, are you able to?
Well, sorry, the point that I'm trying to ask and get some clarification around is that on page 34 we've got an all of council, all of CCC forward view, which has a budget of, goes up once. There's only one jump to, just under $600 million. But let's just go, and I'm only using 34 as an example, which is the transport bit, which in August it jumps again, and then in October it jumps again by another $20 million, but the all of CCC doesn't jump by $20 million. So I'm just trying to understand.
Sorry, I have to go away and have a look at the detail of the...
I can answer that. So Dion, the top line you're referring to is the annual fixed budget, so that's not going to move. What the lines below are is actually what is happening, and what is the forecast.
I'm meaning about the budget, so the budget on the other lines as well. So I understand the relationship between forecast and actual spend, but I'm talking about the actual budget that's set. So I would have thought if there was a relationship between the budget and different parts of the organisation, the overall budget would change as well.
No, that's what they're reporting against. What the blue line is actually just showing where the actual spend is.
I'll deal with this offline. I don't think you're getting what I'm trying to say. But the other thing is around I'm talking about the green lines in all of the reports, and you've got the green line, which is the budget that's in the council, which is all of council, and that goes up once, but then you've got other parts in the different budgets, and again...
Leave it with me and I'll come back and answer. It's an answer that I'm going to have to get between the budget. My understanding, the budget transfers from SAP every night, so I'll just have to see how those budgets and just how those budget lines.
And then the other question which leads me on to that is actually when you do get changes in budget, like that, could we get an explanation about what that budget change is?
Is that it? Okay, next up, Phil.
Thanks, Dave. Can I just ask you a question similar to what I asked Mark? Because I think on our page 36, around the line, and it's a line for the Robert McDougall Gallery, around weather tightness, and like that one is in the line of works carried forward. And I just would have thought that, in fact, weather tightness we should be doing as soon as possible. And I guess that's a bigger question too around that piece of work. But I'm just concerned that some things which might be critical, in fact, go into the carry forward part.
And look, I'm sorry, I'm not over the detail, and I don't know if Mary is, but I do notice that the Robert McDougall's got all the security fences up, so I thought the work was proceeding already, because it's certainly locked away for people can't get into it, which I imagine it's happening. I'm not sure whether it's not.
I'm not sure.
No.
It's not safe.
Sorry?
Because it's not safe. It's an earthquake damage. It's not safe to go into.
Yeah, it's, the new fences have only just gone back up because I know that I used to go up there and there's a couple of statues there and you could get up to them, but you can't now because of the security fences.
Perhaps, Dave, we could get that information later. Yep. That'd be good. My other question, Dave, was just in terms of the, I guess, the projected amount that we would spend, or the planned amount, that in the area for that aggregation, in fact, what's planned to be spent is a much lower percentage of the budget, like just 61%, and quite a lot of money, although it's on budget, would look like we're not going to spend. I'm just wondering, is there not a way that in fact we can fine-tune that more closely?
I think you've got to be really careful because there are different scales up the side of it, and so there's sort of they're less significant in dollar terms. Don't get me wrong, we still want to deliver if we've made the allowance for that amount there. If you have a look, it covers a wide range of kind of projects that for various reasons are proceeding and not proceeding. I've got 80 projects. Principally IT, civil defence, digital channel, regulatory compliance strategy. I'm not sure, Anne, whether you're able to add any detail on any of that. I did have Paragon up here, but it's
Sorry.
Just what page is it?
On page 43.
Sorry, what was the question?
So the question really is, because we're just forecasting to deliver a relatively, not a high percentage, 61% of the planned budget, is there not a way we could fine tune that? So in fact, we either put less on budget or deliver more.
Are you talking about the facilities property planning other category?
Yeah.
So the
whole other category.
Yeah, so the big impact in there, the reason why the vast majority of that money is around the strategic land acquisition budgets. So that's what's driving down it looking like it's not delivering well in terms of a number of projects. This is all a timing issue. So strategic land acquisitions relate to capital project budget that's been put on budget through the long-term plan where land needs to be bought in the future. So sometimes what happens is it's put on budget a couple of years ago and it's discussed with the business unit, so it could be Three Waters might need some land for some stormwater or land drainage and we kind of predict actually that we're probably going to need it in maybe year 2 of the LTP. What happens though is as those projects start getting detailed up and planned, actually the land might not need to be bought until a year later or if at all. So we've got $18 million worth, which is driving the 61% delivery. We've got $18 million worth of strategic land acquisition that is not going to occur this year. That money gets carried forward and it looks like the budget isn't delivering. Does that make sense?
I can understand that example.
Yep.
For example, the other example though of IT, it just would seem to be more straightforward than...
So IT is delivering. IT is delivering very well to budget, so actually it's well on track for this time of the year and we are forecasting there might be some carry forward. Again, timing because of the scale of the projects, but actually I wouldn't be concerned about IT.
Okay.
The IT investment's delivering and tracking to budget.
It's more because of the aggregation of
it's the aggregation and it's challenging because you've got IT, you've got other facilities, property and planning, capital projects. The vast majority of that is actually around strategic land acquisition, which is driven by when that land is required for purchase. Yeah.
Thanks, Ian.
Thank you, Pauline.
You have a look at the detail. A lot of the strategic land, some of them are under contract, but the contracts don't settle out till following years. And when we do need them, some of them are related to some rephasing of projects, so that they're now gone out a number of years. So, as Anne says, that's the biggest underspend in that kind of area, and it's a timing issue. Some of them that, yeah.
Thanks. I think we can see this is one hell of a balancing act, isn't it? Look, my question's on page 60 around the Christchurch wastewater treatment plant, and that's been delayed, so carry forward of funds of 2.2 million. Now, it says earthquake repairs, and then it also says due to a later than planned construction date for stage 2 laboratory building. Can you tell us a bit more about that?
Yeah, what we've got is a capital program that has, we've got a program related to the wastewater treatment plant, and you will, I'm not sure when you were last down there, we should actually take council down there because...
leave us there.
Sorry, leave you there? Yeah. Even when you build the new stadium, the wastewater treatment plant is your biggest asset by a long shot. To replace it, it would cost you 3 to 4 times the amount that a new stadium will cost. So it's your largest. The earthquake damage was set up as a program. It was done as a big insurance program and it's been broken down. One of the issues is that we're getting near the end of the program and some of the repairs are challenging. So that one is related to us having to shift people out of the control room while we rebuild the control room, but I couldn't do that till I'd shifted people out of the laboratory into the new laboratory. The new laboratory's now been done. So it was a logistics because we have to keep things live. Unfortunately, we cannot shut down, tell people we won't receive wastewater for 6 months. And so...
The stage 2 lab building has been completed now.
The stage 2 building, yes, where we've shifted, yes, but we haven't shifted the control systems, and I'm not actually sure the detail of the logistics of it. It's creating a little bit of a logistic, because there's, I don't know, I presume you've been down to the big control room that we've got that controls not only the wastewater system, but the wastewater network and the water network as well.
So my other question around this, and it's probably not that super relevant, well it could be, but is that facility at risk with climate change?
No, my understanding it's not at risk. It's a reasonably high little piece. So from sea level rise, look, if it went up 3.5, no, my understanding, talking to the sea level, and again I'd have to affirm that it's high enough that it's not. And then if you look, the outfall then feeds out into the ocean. So we don't believe that that facility is at risk.
Well, that's good to know. So have you got any timeline on when that 2.2 million will be coming on? And that's just to complete the earthquake repairs, isn't it? So you've actually got two projects on this line.
You don't have any feel for that, do you, John? John thinks, yeah.
Right. Thank you. Thanks.
Glenn?
Thank you. Thanks, Dave. Sceptical question provoked by page 33, just in the last paragraph. So first half of the year, average spend 33, second half projected or hoped for 47. The scepticism is based on the time of the year. So if given that transport's the second biggest grouping, of which my understanding roading is part of that, which in itself is a big spend, just with the inclement weather kicking in, I mean, how realistic is it that we can actually ramp up the spend? Because we know, you know, you're doing a road, bad weather, it's got to be put off or it just rips up again. So
yes, you know, a lot of our construction and land drainage would be the classic one. Napoonawai got hit last year because of bad weather. But if you have a look at how historic spend, and I'd just take you to the graph on the top of that page and just show you how our spend's ramped up. I think there's a comment of to meet our target we have to make 47.6 million a month. But if you have a look at the target and you project over it, you're 50 million, you can see 2 months were above, 2 months were below that. So yes, if we got really bad weather, we would not do that. If we, you know, touch wood, that's with any construction program. Ideally, we'd like to do everything from October through to end of March or maybe end of April, but that's not always possible. We also, you may recall, was it last year, Lynette, that we did Montreal in the middle quite late, but we you know, paid a little bit extra to make sure that we got a product that would last, and they heated the road prior to putting it on, and we did that at night, I think in May and June, I think. So.
there's a lot that's happening at the moment we can see, so yeah.
That's right, and the team are taking on the latest technical kind of innovations to try and expand our construction period without lifting our risk, because basically the last thing I want to do is put down asphalt, for example, and then get it lifting because the surface was wet or whatever.
Yanni?
Thanks for the report. I think it's quite good. I just wondered how feasible it is to hyperlink to the projects, a bit like the previous report, so we can actually click on the project and see, you know, what its kind of scope is. And the question I had really was, how difficult is it to do that, and how can we get it done? And the second question related to that is around communications, is also what communications do we have in terms of protocols around projects that are delayed or you know, taking longer than they should, of communicating to people to let them know, to the community?
There are a number of issues in there, and we are trying to develop a public-facing view of this. You've got to recognise that this tool is a project management. It's got sensitive information around contractor performance, it's got sensitive information around financial, it's got variations out there, And what we're adapting, it's not the ideal tool to present out of a governance tool. So we are looking at how we can adapt that and whatever. We are looking to see whether we can get a public-facing or a councillor-facing view of it. But there are some sensitive things in there. It's not quite as easy as what we were thinking. Now, I understand the team has developed a beta version of it, but it's sort of stored as other priorities.
So I was just looking at on page 36. So just that spreadsheet, each project has a project ID. If you clicked on that project ID, it would take you to a CPMS sheet. But you can't obviously click on it because we don't have links. But there's a kind of page that's quite general that shows timing, scope.
Yeah,
My reading of those sheets is there's nothing really sensitive in them. But yeah, I don't understand why it's hard for us just to present that information. Is it just the IT system doesn't allow us to do it?
And that's what the PMO office is developing. What is the information we can put out there so you can click and get that latest information, and what fields appropriately go in there? I'm sorry, I haven't got Paul here.
That's all right. If we just can get some advice back on it.
Can you leave it with me, and
okay,
we
great.
can report back to the next committee about progress on it.
So the other question I was going to raise is, this is good for us at a council level. At a community board level, are we able to get a more ward-specific breakdown of the capital projects like we've got here that we could report to the community boards, so that community boards could kind of get a quick snapshot of what was happening for their projects?
To do it out of this tool would be really expensive to develop. We've talked about that because it was asked of Jed, and because a lot of stuff's run at project and program level and it goes across ward boundaries, or there are projects that we'll get down and we'll say Southwest Water Mains will be a project which will have 6 projects in it, but it'll go out as one project, and that might go across 3 different community wards.
Right.
Now, it gets difficult that we don't have the breakdown of how all those sit in wards. You appreciate that this system was developed as a project management system, which is universally used, not universally used, but used by a lot of other organisations, not only Christchurch City. And so to get that report would take, my understanding, quite a bit of software development by people.
So I would have thought one of the things that we should be trying to do is think about ward-based reporting.
Okay, can I come in here? We are working on that.
Okay.
So it is possible, but it may not come out of this particular system. But
for our draft annual plan and long-term plan, one of the really good pieces of information that the staff have got, which, and I thought it would have been easy to link to this, is those ward-based capital program with the changes that are proposed, the current budgets. So, it seems like we've actually got a model there.
It's actually probably more in the next report. The next report, this is a high-level capital program report. The next report has a lot more detail.
And then just the final question was, so are you able to tell me what the communication protocols we have in place for communicating start work notices or information to communities when projects are delayed?
With all of our projects, we have tried to keep we've got a comms plan that sits there and regularly communicates to who we consider to be the stakeholders that are required. We normally have a comms person related to each project and project team. So my understanding is, as updates are needed and required, they should go out. Not sure whether anyone up there is able to elaborate more on. We're talking about comms plans around projects.
Can you come to the table, please, if you're going to talk?
If we have delays on any of our projects, we send out a communication via letterbox drop.
Sorry, by what? Letterbox drop. And is there a start work notice that goes out to the local boards?
Every job has a start work notice. Every job has a start week notice. It will usually be dropped as a letterbox drop, and more often than not, the contractors put their own notices out in a letterbox drop as well. Often they'll do ours for us at sort of no cost, which is a bit of a bonus. That is not a guarantee that people see it. because it does go in their letterbox, and there's a lot of junk mail that goes in people's letterboxes, so we don't guarantee that. So John and my team are working really hard on a number of big significant projects, and we've talked about Riccarton Road before on a number of occasions, to make sure that we set up the comms that is relevant and appropriate for the level of project that we're doing.
Right. So I guess what I'm trying to get in place is a system where we would communicate once we know things are delayed versus the original
We
date.
do our best to do it as much as we can,
Yeah.
and it doesn't happen every time, and sometimes we just need to keep motoring, and sometimes it doesn't happen. Dave talked about the fact that we've got 900 odd projects, we've got about 300 odd contracts out there at the moment, so we do our best
Right.
to do that, and we try to do that, but it isn't a one size fits all.
Right, but on this kind of big project management spreadsheet that you've got, is there a kind of box that says, you know, new start work, revised start work notice, like Skirt used to do, you know, completion date has changed, send out new start work notice, or communicate back to the local community board?
This is a project management. It's not actually necessarily a... You sitting behind each project will be, you may have something sitting in project, for example, Microsoft Project, which gives you the detailed Gantt chart and whole program. This is at a high level reporting tool which measures our risks, our program, but there will be a far more detailed breakdown in a variety of different systems and a whole pile of different bring-ups and systems depending on what that project is. So this is a reporting management tool, not necessarily a detailed project management tool.
No, I just...
Okay, thank you. Andrew?
No, I'm fine now, thank you.
Okay. Jimmy?
Okay, thank you, Chair. One question, can you please clarify with us, on page 34, the last paragraph, particular focus on this chart, the underspend of those budget is approximately $140 million. Whether it's in relation to the, mainly relation to the project on the page 36.
If you have a look, the chart as it stands would indicate an underspend of the original planned budget. That's the blue line where our project managers, those dotted lines are the extrapolations, as I've said, from our project management office. We believe that they will be lifted higher than that, and we are working very hard to make sure that we deliver. There will be some things, like we say, that we won't recover. We won't be paying, I don't think, if something happens, we won't be paying the interchange, for example. So there'll be some things that are not recoverable, and it makes good sense for us not to spend that money at this point in time. But we are doing anything that we can deliver. We will certainly be trying to make sure it goes. That line, those lines are going to be, as raised, I think, by Councillor Livingston, you know, subject to weather, subject to consenting, a wide range of things. You know, our wellhead program went back about a week because we stopped all work because of potential health and safety issues. We just have to make sure that we are doing all those sorts of things to try and make sure that we maximise our spend.
Yes, I know, but I mean the list of figure, whether it's from the page 36, you know, all those key projects. Some of the projects carried forward, some of the projects brings back. Then after the revise, they get this figure. I just want to know.
Yeah, that's what the number. That's what
where
the
this figure come from?
That has come from the forecast after.
Yes.
The bringbacks and carry forwards have been accounted for, is my understanding.
Yeah, it's after.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. It's fine.
Any other questions? Okay, thank you very much, everyone. So we have a resolution to receive the information in the report. Do I have a mover for that? Moved Phil, seconded Mike. Any debate? I'll put the motion. All in favour say aye. Aye. Against, that's carried.